Comics for the week of August 22, 2018 over at DC. I'm going to be looking at Action Comics, Justice League Dark, as well as a brand new Batman miniseries. Over at Marvel, I'm going to be looking at Mr. and Mrs. X, Daredevil, Amazing Spider-Man, as well as two brand new number ones. One of them is The Punisher, and the other one is West Coast Avengers. And then over at Image Comics, I'm going to be looking at Robert Kirkman's Die, Die, Die. Stay tuned. Action Comics 1002, written by Brian Michael Bendis and art by Patrick Gleason. The art in this book is really great. It looks so nice. Love the coloring and everything. Awesome art. Bendis was really funny with his writing in this book. There's this opening scene where this guy is dropped from the sky and everyone in the city is going like, look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. And then there's this one typical like guy in the city going like, psh, tourist, act like they've never seen Superman before. And then the guy that dropped from the sky was apparently a low-level criminal named Yogurt, which is definitely played for comedic effect throughout this story. Everyone referring to this Yogurt guy, such a funny name. Now, the overarching story in this is that someone was committing crimes so that Superman would be misdirected and then they could commit their own crimes in another part of the city. However, that's starting to become more confused of some of the things that happened in this issue because there was this one crime boss and we were thinking that maybe he was the guy doing these, staging these crimes, but it turns out he gets killed in this issue, so it's not him. And then there's this mysterious red cloud in the sky that seems to be involved somehow. I mean, it's weird, red cloud, but I mean, I'm interested to know what the deal with that is. And then Lois Lane was supposedly out in space for the last few issues in this book, and then it turns out that she was actually secretly on Earth, and she was writing a novel, and she didn't tell her husband, Superman Clark Kent, about it. So that's very mysterious as well. Lots of intrigue going on in this book. I'm loving it. Like, I definitely want to see where it goes. This is just such a good book. 8.5 out of 10. Definitely check it out. Justice League Dark number 2. Now this is a step up from issue 1. Issue 1 was a lot of setup and introducing all the characters, and issue 2 kind of brings the plot forward a lot more. Now I like the characters in this book. It's nice to see Wonder Woman. I always like Zatanna, love Swamp Thing, but I want to talk about Detective Chimp. I love Detective Chimp. He's great. What a crazy concept for a character. It's a talking chimp that acts like Sherlock Holmes and dresses like Sherlock Holmes. Fantastic. So in this one, there's like a war on magic progressing. We don't really know who's behind it. So the Justice League Dark heads over to the Tower of Fate to talk to Dr. Fate. And it's slowly revealed that Dr. Fate they've been talking to is not who they've thought it was. It turns out it's this guy, Nabu, who's like a powerful magic user who gives Dr. Fate his powers. And I guess he's somehow disposed of the original Dr. Fate somewhere. And yeah, I don't really know what's going on with that. To be honest, Dr. Fate's a character I don't know much about. I had to actually research into it after reading this book to figure out what was going on. But nevertheless, I think it's an interesting concept, and I want to learn more about it in future issues and what's going on there. Also, in this book, we have some Constantine and Swamp Thing scenes where I guess Swamp Thing wants to kind of give up and go live in the Parliament of Trees and not worry about this particular world anymore, but John Constantine's kind of giving Swamp Thing shit for it, and that's funny too. So I really enjoyed this book. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I want to see where it goes. Awesome stuff. Brand new Batman miniseries called Batman Kings of Fear, written by Scott Peterson and drawn by Kelly Jones. I'm not too familiar with the creative team's work, but I believe they are part of the 90s, 2000s crew. That's where majority of their work comes from. And let me just focus on the art first. This artwork is very 90s. Now, I think some pages are really good, and some pages I really kind of don't like because it's so different than the modern style we get with DC today. One of the pages has Batman with the costume with the really long ears where it's kind of ridiculous. And Batman also has his very classic yellow symbol with the bat symbol on it, which he does not wear today. I think this story is kind of lazy. The Joker's waiting for Batman in a warehouse, and then the Joker's over monologuing and just yapping. And then Batman takes the Joker to Arkham Asylum, where of course we are introduced to all the other villains, and so many of the villains are in this book. There's like 7 or 8 of them, just in there for a few panels as an excuse for the artist to get to draw them, but not really relevant to the story. And then there's this one scene where Batman's talking to this one doctor in Arkham Asylum, and this female doctor is just bitching Batman out, like saying, you caused these people in Arkham Asylum to be so crazy, they're so obsessed with you, you're the fault. But yet she's bitching Batman out, but yet there's basically a prison break going on in Arkham Asylum at that moment. So she and her team are clearly not running a tight ship here, but yet she's criticizing Batman so hard. This issue ends that finally Batman has calmed down most of the inmates in Arkham Asylum, but of course the Scarecrow has escaped. And Batman goes after the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow hits him with some poison gas or whatever, and that's sort of where we leave off. I would give this a 5.5 out of 10. The story is bad and not well written at all. However, the art, I think there is a segment of the population that will be into this 90s style art and will really dig it. So if you think that's you, check this out. However, if you don't think you're going to be into it, then definitely don't check this out. Mr. and Mrs. X issue 2. So this book is all about Rogue and Gambit, and they just recently got married and they're on their honeymoon in space. And while they're in their space honeymoon, all of a sudden there was a package that was maybe going to fall into the wrong hands on this particular spaceship, and Rogue and Gambit just happened to be close to it. So even though they're on their honeymoon, they had to kind of stop the honeymoon festivities and go check this out. And yada yada yada. Last issue, somehow Rogue got teleported away with Deadpool in space and with an egg. A fancy, like a big egg, a mysterious egg. We don't know what it is. So then this issue picks up from there, and Deadpool and Rogue are just fighting about this egg, and Deadpool just wants it because he knows it's probably worth a lot of money, and they're just rolling around fighting over this egg. It was really funny. Deadpool had some really good lines. Eventually Gambit comes into the mix and they're all fighting for this egg, and then a whole bunch of D-list villains I've never heard of show up, and they are easily fought and done away with. I could have done without them, frankly. I like just the banter between Deadpool and Rogue and Gambit. But nevertheless, this issue ends with Rogue, Gambit, and Deadpool on their spaceship with the egg, and they're going to go back to Earth to deliver it to like the X-Men or something so that it's in safekeeping, because supposedly a lot of people in space will be gunning for it and trying to get that egg. And then all of a sudden the egg hatches, and inside the egg is a clone Rogue. And mind blown. So weird. Craziness. So yeah, kind of out there, but I mean overall it was fun, and I want to see what the deal with this clone Rogue is, and I want to see some more banter between Deadpool and everybody. So yeah, I'm really digging this for now. I would give this a 7.5 out of 10. Daredevil 607 by Charles Soule. This is a very interesting departure from the storyline we've had. So in the previous issues, we were dealing a lot with the Kingpin being mayor of New York and Daredevil trying to bring him down. Then last issue, we were introduced to Mike Murdock, who's apparently Matt's secret twin brother. So in this issue, we have this confrontation between Daredevil and Mike Murdock. So in this issue, we're given like a 3-page montage of explaining the history of Mike Murdock in the Marvel Universe. So basically, Mike Murdock is not a real person. It was someone just Matt made up, and he would pretend to be sometimes as like an alter ego as to, gain advantage in particular situations. But then for some reason, all of a sudden, there's a Mike Murdock right here in the flesh. So Daredevil is trying to figure this out. Now, he's questioning Mike Murdock in this villain bar, and then all of a sudden, a whole bunch of C-list villains show up, and they have to throw down with them. Then once the villains are taken care of, Daredevil takes this Mike Murdock to this Sterilon guy. He's an Inhuman. I've never heard of this guy before, and he looks ridiculous, but that's what kind of makes it funny. And apparently, so this Sterilon guy, he can like read minds, so he reads the mind of this Mike Murdock guy. I'm trying to figure out like what the deal with this guy is, and we find out that this Mike Murdock truly believes he is who he says he is, but there's definitely something weird with his brain, and like pieces of his memory are missing, so someone's definitely up with this. At the end of this issue, this Mike Murdock escapes, and then he goes and heads over to Foggy Nelson's office and, sticks a gun at Foggy, and that's sort of the cliffhanger we end on. So I really liked this issue. Now, I was really invested in that Kingpin storyline, so I wanted to know what goes on there, but then all of a sudden, Charles Soule throws this crazy curveball of Mike Murdock and this crazy twin brother storyline. Now, I want to know what's going on with that. There's lots of balls in the air that he's juggling right now, and it's a fun ride. Also, the art is awesome. The art is great. I would give this an 8 out of 10. Can't wait to read the next issue. Amazing Spider-Man number 4, written by Nick Spencer and art by Ryan Ottley. Some of you might know Ryan from his work in Invincible. He killed it on that book, and he killed it in this book. He has a very good style that just fits great with Amazing Spider-Man, and I love the art in this issue. So this is part 4 of the Back to Basics storyline, which I wasn't liking initially because I don't like the idea of there being 2 Peter Parkers, but it's really started to grow on me. So if you know the famous Spider-Man quote, "With great power comes great responsibility," in this storyline, the power and responsibility part of Spider-Man have been split into 2. So there's Peter Parker, and he is sort of the responsibility part of it, and then there's the Spider-Man part that is the power part of it, but has no responsibility, and there's 2 separate people. So what's really funny in this book is that Peter Parker, with no power but all the responsibility, he's just walking around doing his everyday normal life, but he's constantly trying to help people. He's putting change in meters for people's car for parking so that they don't get a ticket, and he's helping people cross the street, whereas Spider-Man, with no responsibility, is just swinging around the town, having fun. He's going to basketball games. He's basically on The View. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be The View. Peter eventually confronts this particular Spider-Man and questions him and his motives, and that, he's not doing the right thing with his power. And the Spider-Man guy kind of tells Peter to just chill out, and he webs him up. And then when Peter Parker asks the Spider-Man, what would Uncle Ben say? The Spider-Man guy says back to him, "Who?" Meaning that he doesn't know who Uncle Ben is anymore, which is what? So eventually Peter goes back to the lab where Dr. Connors was kind of experimenting on mice that led to this eventual copy of the 2 Spider-Mans, and we find out that the 2 mice are now dead, and that when the 2 sides are separated, they will eventually die. So then we kind of end this issue with Peter knowing that he has to find a way to reform with that other side of him, that Spider-Man that's out there. So this is a really great book, really funny, really fun, having a great time with it. 8 out of 10. West Coast Avengers number 1. These are mostly filled of B and C and D list superheroes, so it's no Hulk or Iron Man. So in this book we have Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, some guy named Fuse, some other person named America Chavez, Gwenpool, Kid Omega, aka Quentin Quire. And this book deals with a lot of stuff in the first issue, so Kate Bishop is putting the team together, so there's a funny montage of trying out various people for the team, a lot of them really funny. There's land sharks, so there's a whole bunch of fighting sharks that run on land. Quentin Quire, who joins the team, is being filmed for a reality TV show, so there's like a reality TV show going on in the mix. There's also a giant Tigra, that chick Tigra. She's giant and she's attacking the city. And then there's something at the end of the story called Brodok, this dude named Brodok. Brodok is a bio-robotic organism designed overwhelmingly for kissing. Oh man, lots of stuff going on in this issue. It seems kind of promising, kind of funny. I would give it a 7 out of 10. I may read the next issue. I don't really care much for the characters, but I don't know, it was a good time. And we got a brand new Punisher #1 written by Matt Rosenberg. This book did not need to be renumbered as the writer is still the same, but I guess they're going on to a new storyline, so they decided to do a brand new #1 on it. So in the previous Punisher run, it was getting a little crazy. I wasn't liking it. Punisher somehow got himself some Iron Man armor, and he was all Iron Man'd up, and he was killing a whole bunch of dudes. And while that sounds cool, it wasn't actually that great a storyline. Now in this storyline, in this new #1, the armor's gone, and it's Frank just killing people, classic Frank style. Now the bad guys in this are Baron Zemo and the Mandarin, and they are in cahoots. They're trying to come up with some sort of scheme. It looks like one of them is the leader of a country called Bagalia, and the Mandarin is going to give a speech at the UN to try to get the world to recognize Bagalia as its own nation. And then, while they're at the UN, Frank kills the Mandarin with a magic bullet, because I guess the Mandarin can like stop bullets or something, but this magic bullet he's unable to stop, and it kills him, and the Mandarin is dead. I mean, I always love a cool character death. That means that like shit is happening, so it was pretty exciting. When we're looking at the art of this book, the art's not bad. Sometimes I found the faces a little hard to make out, so while the art's not perfect, I think the story is doing some interesting things, at least in this first issue, and I totally do recommend it. I would give it an 8 out of 10. Die, Die, Die is the second issue in Robert Kirkman's new comic series. Robert Kirkman of Invincible and Walking Dead fame, both great books. The artist in this book is Chris Burnham. Some of you might remember him from Grant Morrison's Batman Incorporated. This guy has pretty solid art. He's so good at drawing like violence and blood and gore and action, and there's a lot of that in this book. So the overall plotline of this series is that in the US government and kind of around the world, there's like a secret society of assassins that manipulate world events through their assassinations. And last issue, one of the top assassins got kidnapped and his nose got cut off. And then in this issue, where that particular assassin that was kidnapped, now he's being sold at auction to all sorts of nefarious people, and the top bidder will eventually buy him and do God knows what with him. Now that one kidnapped assassin is actually part of a triplets. He has two brothers, and I guess they're also assassins. And it seems like the one brother is coming to save the kidnapped brother this issue, but instead he kills that brother and he cuts off his own nose to take the place of that brother. For what purposes, we do not know. That's how this issue ends. I'm definitely hooked on this book. The cliffhanger makes me want to see where it goes from here. I have faith in Robert Kirkman that he's going to turn out a good story on this. I mean, I'm not loving it as much as Walking Dead and Invincible yet, but it's on a very good track. I would give this an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. There were so many books out this week. If there's anything I didn't get to that you would recommend to me, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will maybe check out that book. And check out my other videos, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you.